Hey guys, Steven here, and today, look at what I've got. So this is a Kala solid body U-bass. I had a fretless one before. I think you've seen that one. It's hiding back here somewhere, I think. Yeah, it's kind of leaning against the wall behind me. So it's hard to see, but it's kind of between the upright bass and against the wall. You can kind of see the tuner. Sorry, it's on this side. Right there. But this is the fretted version. And I got this from Kala very recently, so I thought I'd play it today. I've got my loop pedal plugged in. I'm having a couple issues with things shorting out on me. So if something happens, we'll just kind of roll with it. So I wanted to mention some things that are happening in the new year. Obviously, I've started my U-bass blues course, so I'm going to be continuing with that. Today, I'll probably go over some blues concepts a little bit in the live stream, but I'll also just be playing some random stuff too. So check it out and feel free to request things. If you have questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to get to your questions, but I think I'll just start this out the way I normally do for now. If I can get this speaker to work, give me 1 second. All right, so as you can kind of hear, there's a loose connection or something going on. I'm trying to figure that out with the speaker. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. So I've already messed up the speaker behind me. I don't think it's going to work right again, but let me see. I'm just going to give it one little nudge and see if it's still making the sound it was making earlier. Yep. So we may have to go speakerless, which means I'll have to go with a different bass, which is a big frustrating thing right now. So let's see. Yeah, so I may just have to play a different bass. Sorry for that, guys. But here, just look at this one. You've heard it hopefully on the other videos I made. I made a couple of shorts with it so far. So it's got the tortoiseshell pickguard. It's black. It's a lot of fun to play. Speaker may just be out of juice. I'm trying to think if I have anything else I can play through. I can plug the PA in, but I need the cables and they're in the car. And this speaker just broke today. So and that one I think broke a while ago. I can try that one. That's my only solution right now. So we'll have to try this first. That's going down in case it does work. We'll just give up on this guy. Sorry guys, I really wanted to play this bass for you, so we'll just see what we can do. That didn't even work. No power at all. Nothing. That's weird. I'm going to try to plug directly in to this smaller speaker. Well, I hope y'all are enjoying the way the bass looks, at the very least. I'm going to bypass the loop pedal. I was planning on doing some looping stuff for you, but Let's just see if we can get it to work at all before we worry about that. Okay. Let's try this and see if that works. All right, so far, that got rid of the static. So we'll just go with that. No loop pedal, but maybe we can still talk about the concepts even though we can't play it along with the loop. So I was going to go over a little bit of blues stuff with you guys. I know some of you have been on board before and seen some blues stuff on here, but let's kind of jump into that a little bit. So in the first lesson on the blues course that I started, I talked about the 12-bar grid. So basically, if you're doing a 1-4-5 blues, you're doing 4 measures. It's your 1 chord, which is just a note that has the same name as whatever key you're in. So if someone says a 12-bar blues in G, then you're going to start there on a G note. And then if you're trying to find the next chord, so after 4 measures of that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to move directly underneath it because that'll be where our 4 chord is. I discussed what that meant on that video. So definitely check out the blues course I'm starting if you want to know what that means. So that's the 4 chord. You do that for 2 measures. Go back to the 1 chord for 2 measures. And then you go to your 5 chord. And the way you find your 5 chord is, remember how we went from our original note to here? Well, now we're just going to add 2 frets to that to find our 5 chord. And then we move back to our 4 chord and back to our 1 and then back to our 5 chord. So let me play what that sounds like. I'm just going to recap what happened in that blues course. And this will be kind of what I plan to do with the rest of the course. If you've watched a live stream over the summer, I kind of talked about my ideas with that. We're just going to try to discuss it all. And then as you see these videos come out, hopefully they can help clarify things. I'll try to go more in depth with that. So at the end of part 1 of the blues course, I was going, that's the 2nd measure, 3, 4. Now we're going to the 4 chord directly under it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now we're going back to the 1 chord. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now we're going to the 5 chord, the 4 chord, the 1 chord, and the 5 chord. So the reason I did all that with my index finger is because the next step is adding a pattern that's not just 4 of that note, right? So what I was doing for the pattern here is I was going 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what the pattern sounds like on the 1 chord. We do that 4 times, then we go up to the what we call the 4 chord, which once again is directly below that. Don't let the number throw you off. It's not a fret number. It's coming from the scale. And I explained all that in that first video. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check that out. What did I call it? The U-Bass Blues course, I believe. So check that out, and then you'll know kind of where we are. So then basically what we can do now is, instead of this being our pattern, which is just 4 of whatever our starting point note is, we could do a whole pattern, right? So let's say our pattern is this. That's a really easy pattern, right? Still quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. But this time, instead of just playing G 4 times, our pattern goes 1 string thinner and up 2 frets. So if we were doing our finger in a grid shape, our index finger would get the first note. Then we go 1 string thinner, and we could use our ring finger to play 2 frets up from there. So that ends up being the 5th fret on the A string. But this pattern can move. So just look at what the fingers are doing and how many frets I'm going up from the original note. So if I was on the 3rd fret with the index finger, I'm using my ring finger because I'm 2 frets away from there on the A string. So 3rd fret E string, 5th fret A string. Now our index finger will move down to the 3rd fret on the D string. And then since we're still using the grid, since it's a 3rd fret note, our ring finger will get this one as well, 3rd fret D string. So 3rd fret E, 5th fret, 1 string thinner, 3rd fret, 1 string thinner, 5th fret on the same string that we just played on. So now we move up to our 4 chord, which, as we talked about before, that means our starting point is going to move to the 3rd fret on the A string, right? So if we do that, that means every other note, since all that happened with this note was it moved down 1 string, or 1 string thinner, I should say, all the other notes in the pattern are also going to move 1 string thinner. So we had 3rd fret E, 5th fret A string. Those are going to become 3rd fret A string, 5th fret D string, and we're going to use the same fingers to play them. And then we go 1 string thinner, let's do the 3rd fret on that string, and then the 5th fret on the same string. So when we were on our 1 chord, it looked like this. And then we moved every single note 1 string thinner for our 4 chord. So we do the pattern 2 times here. Then we go back to our 1 chord and we play that 2 times. Now we're going to go to our 5 chord. Do you remember that position from where we were starting in the original video, part 1 of the course? We're going to move up to the 5th fret. So 5th fret on the A string. So our 1 chord was starting point here. Our 4 chord had a starting point here. And our 5 chord started here on the 5th fret. So if we're moving this pattern to where it's starting on the 5th fret on the A string, that means every single note has to move the same distance as this does. So in other words, our pointer finger, let me see how to say this. Our pointer finger is starting on our starting note, right? Our ring finger is going 2 frets up from there, 1 string thinner. So instead of thinking about what fret it ends up on, just think about that math, right? And then our index finger is getting the starting point fret, but 2 strings thinner than the original. And then our ring finger is getting the note on that same string, if that makes sense. So just look at what each note is doing from the starting point note. So I went to the 4 chord, all of them just moved down a string. And now that we're going up here, our whole grid is moving, but we're using our same fingers to play the pattern. And I think the way that's easiest to understand this is to understand that your fingers are doing the same thing. So let me tell you what the frets are on this one. Your index finger is getting the 5th fret notes. Your ring finger is getting the 7th fret notes. We're not using the other 2 fingers, but they're kind of assigned, right? 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. So before, when we did it, we had 3rd frets and 5th frets. But now that whole entire pattern has moved to our new starting point. So our old starting point was 3rd fret on the E string. Our new starting point for our 5 chord is the 5th fret on the A string. But our fingers do the same pattern. So hopefully that makes sense. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the whole entire 12-bar blues playing that pattern. And I'm going to say what chord we're on and how many times we're supposed to play it. So we play the 1 chord 4 times. So that means we're going to play that pattern starting on 3rd fret E string 4 times. 3rd one. Now we're going to our 4 chord, which means everything's going 1 string thinner. Our fingers are doing the same pattern. Now we're going back to the original. There's the 2nd one there. Now we're going up to the 5 chord. Doing the same finger pattern, but we're up there now. Now we're going to the 4 chord. Now we're going to the 1 chord. And we're going to the 5 chord. So now I'm going to play it without saying anything and just see if you kind of understand what's going on. So try to tell when I'm on the 1 chord, when I'm on the 4 chord, and when I'm on the 5 chord. So that means when my index finger is starting here versus when it's starting here, or when it's starting here to do the same pattern. So let me just play it and we'll just see if you can follow it. So let me know in the comments if you've been on here for a minute, if you can follow what's going on. And yes, this is a new, it's not really a bass uke, but it is a new bass, right? So it's a U bass because it's made by Kala, and they call all their basses U basses. So it says U bass, but it's actually a short scale. I think it's 27-inch scale. And look at this new pickguard, right? So they have a tortoiseshell pickguard option. They also have a pearl inlay. They have a mint color, and then they have a black one. So that's their new things for these for this year. And I like the tortoiseshell, so I got this one. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I've done a couple short videos. If you check out the short videos, I've done a couple short videos on it. So it's exciting. Pretty excited about this one. And yeah, I gotta just kind of like, I know it sounds kind of advertisey, but they gave me like a discount link for other people that wanted to order one straight from Kala. And you can find that on the last 2 short videos I made, you know, the ones that feature the space. But that's not what today is about. We're going to keep going through this blues lesson. So basically what's going on is we learned our 12 bar. Now we've applied a pattern to it. We've talked about where to start that pattern. So that means where the index finger is going to be on the first note of the pattern. So our first starting point is here. Then when we get to our 4 chord, we're going to move 1 string thinner. So the whole pattern will move 1 string thinner. The starting point will be 3rd fret on the A string instead of 3rd fret on the E string. And then when we move up to our 5 chord, that'll be 5th fret on the A string as our starting point. So our fingers will still do the same thing, which will be a note on the starting string at our starting point, then a note 2 frets up, 1 string thinner. So our ring finger will play the 2nd note. Then back to the same fret as whatever our starting point is in the new position, and that'll be 1 string thinner as well as the previous note. So 2 strings thinner than the starting point. And then the last note's on the same string as the note before it. Okay, so that's our pattern, and that will move around based on where our starting point is. So I'm going to play the whole 12 bar and just see if you can catch what's going on by where my index finger is starting. So right now it's starting on the 3rd fret on the E string. I'm going to play it 4 times here. I'm going to move to the 4 chord, which is 1 string thinner. Every note moved 1 string thinner. Now back to the original. Now we're going to our 5 chord. Everything shifted up 2 frets and started on the A string. So if you watch the first blues course video, or if you just know the 12 bar blues, you'll understand what we were doing, hopefully. And if you don't, you can leave a question and I'll try to clarify. It's kind of hard to know what way to say it that's the most clear, but sometimes when people ask questions, it clarifies what the confusion is. So let me know in the comments if you understood that, or if you need a little bit more explanation of how that happened. So this is the 12 bar blues. So that was 12 measures. First measure, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So that whole entire pattern, or the whole entire song form, rather, it would repeat over, it would start over after that. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's kind of what we did. We took the root note that we had in the original lesson video, and now we're doing patterns around it. So that's our pattern. We moved it around. So it's a geometrical pattern. It's geometrically the same, even though our starting point is in different places. So it was starting 3rd fret E string. Then the second time it was starting 3rd fret A string. And the third time it was starting, the third place it happened was the 5th fret on the A string. So our 1 chord pattern, our 4 chord pattern, and our 5 chord pattern. And to refresh your brains, that what is the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord? Well, the 1 is coming from the key that we're in. So if we're in the key of G major, G is our 1. G happens to be the 3rd fret on the E string. That's the way we're playing it here. So that's our 1 chord. But if we played through a G major scale, we could find these other notes. So our 4 chord is just going to be the starting on the 4th note of G major. G, A, B, C. So it's starting on a C. Notice that that is right underneath the first one. That's how we found our 4 chord. Okay? And then we go up 2 frets from there to find the 5 chord, because that's just the next note in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3rd fret, A string is our 4 chord. 5. It happens to be the 5th fret on the A string. It's not why it's called the 5 chord. It's called the 5 chord because it's the 5th note of the scale of the key that we're in. So someone says, we're doing a 12-bar blues in the key of G. That's what they're saying. We're gonna start on G. Eventually, we're gonna go to the 4 chord. Eventually, we're gonna go to the 5 chord. Usually in this order. We'll do the 1 chord 4 times in a row. So here's our pattern. We'll play out 4 times. 1, 2, 3rd time, 4th time. Now we're gonna move to our 4 chord, 1 string thinner, and play it twice. Now we're going to move back to our original place, our 1 chord, and play it 2 times. Now we're going to move to our 5 chord and play it 1 time. Now we're going to move to our 4 chord and play the pattern 1 time. Now we're going to move back to our 1 chord and play it 1 time as well. And usually it'll go back to the 5 chord at the end. Although sometimes it doesn't play the pattern to get there. Sometimes it does a little walk up, which we haven't talked about yet. So before we talk about other things like that and other variations to the pattern and all this, let's assume that's our 12-bar blues. So I'm going to write the formula on this lovely little, piece of paper. That'll work. All right, fold it up. There we go. Nice. So 12-bar blues. I'm going to write, you know how I was calling it the 1, the 4, and the 5? I'm going to write those in Roman numerals, and I'm going to show that it's a different measure by splitting them with lines. So it'll look like this for the first 4 measures. We did the 1 chord. Whoops. Yeah. The 1 chord, then we did it again, then we did it again, and then we did it again. Now we're going to go to the 4 chord. We're going to do that 2 times. So I just on the next line down, so I ran out of room on the top. I like to split them into groups of 4. So then this is measure 5 and measure 6. Sorry, I'm looking at the screen to see where I'm pointing at, and it shows a mirror image, so my brain's not wrapping itself around that right. But that's the 6th measure of the whole thing. So we're 6 bars into there. Then we go back to our 1 chord for 2 measures, 2 bars. Then we go to our 5 chord. Then we go to our 4 chord. Then we go to our 1 chord. And like I said, you usually go back to the 5 chord at the end. I'll put it in parentheses because sometimes we'll just stay on the 1 chord. Sometimes we'll walk into the 5, but usually it's a 5 chord at the end. So 12-bar blues. 1. So we'll do our pattern based off of the 1 chord 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll go to our 4 chord and we'll do it 2 times. 1, 2. Then back to our 1 chord 2 times. Then we'll go to our 5 chord, then our 4 chord, then our 1 chord, then our 5 chord. So that's the pattern. I'm going to see if I can, I don't know how to get this to stay up while I play through it so you can see what's going on and follow along. Surely there's something on this desk I can just lean this against. Let's see. This is a cute little thing that kind of sits on the desk. Can it hold anything is the question. Trying to be clever doesn't always work out. Oh, it's so close. Let's try a different thing on the desk. How about this thing of pens? That should hold it up. Okay. It's working, it's just leaned the wrong way. Oh man. Okay, you can kind of see that, right? Just the bottom part's getting a little chopped off. There we go. Nope, there we don't go. Let's try setting it up here. You're only seeing 8 bars of the 12 bar blues. That's not going to help. Okay, that's working for now, so hopefully it'll stay. So our 1 pattern starts here, our 4 pattern starts there, and our 5 pattern starts here. So first measure, 1, 1, that's our second measure, 1, that's our third measure, 1. Okay, now we're going to the 4 chord. See where I'm starting? Back to the 1 chord, 1 chord again. Now we're at the 5 chord, now the 4 chord, now the 1 chord, now the 5 chord. So those tell you where to start your pattern. That's basically the idea. Our 1 chords here, our 4 chords there, and our 5 chords there. You could learn every single scale that you choose to play this in. So if somebody says, oh, now we're going to do the key of A. If you learn an A major scale, you can find your 1, your 4, and your 5 from that scale. First note of the scale, 4th note of the scale, and 5th note of the scale. That makes sense? So those are your starting points if we decide to do this in a different key. So we were doing it in the key of G, which is based off of the G major scale. But now we want to do it based off of the A major scale. We'll do the same pattern just to keep things simple. So we're starting on an A, our 4 chords right underneath it, and our 5 chord is 2 frets up from there. So you can either memorize it like that, or you can use the scale to find those notes if you don't believe me or if you need extra reinforcement of where we got those from. Okay, so our pattern once again was so we're doing like a grid pattern. So our index finger note, our ring finger note 1 string thinner, our index finger note 1 string thinner than that, and our ring finger note on the same string as the previous note. So now I'm going to take that all the way around the 12 bar blues. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second measure, third measure. Now it's time to go to the 4 chord. Second one, back to the 1 chord. 1 chord again, to the 5 chord, so we scoot up 2 frets. Back to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, and then back to the 5 chord. So I'm going to take all those extra notes out and just show you the starting note so that you know what's going on. The first measure, we started here. The second measure, we started here. Third measure, then the 4th measure. Now I move 1 string thinner. The whole pattern moves 1 string thinner. Stay there. Now I move back to the first note. Now I stay there. Okay, then we go to our 5 chord. So that's 2 frets up on the A string. Now our 4 chord moves back to where it was, and then our 1 chord, sorry, and then our 5 chord at the end. So maybe disregard what I was saying, but you see those were our starting points of the pattern. The rest of the notes followed from where we started. So they're like, it's like you took a little square and said, let me see if I can do something silly. I think it'll help. Okay. For those that aren't following, because I know this is a weird concept, it's a shape that we're moving around the neck. So I'm going to draw or try to fold a shape that matches the size of what we're doing. And see if this makes it a little clearer, because I know this can be confusing for a lot of people. I've taught this before a lot, and people struggle with. Some people are good at it. They're good at like the geometry of this, and some people aren't as strong at the geometry part. So because it's weird, our pattern is just like right now. Our pattern is just within 3 frets, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm gonna like draw it on here so I get it right. our first note's there. Now we're moving one string thinner and 2 frets up. Okay, now we're moving one string thinner and 1 fret back. Then we're moving up to here. So I'm going to draw the string kind of zigzag. Hopefully I'm tracing the string. That's my hope. So that you can see that was the 3rd string. Oh, sorry, that's supposed to go through that note. Those are on the same string. Well, that made it confusing. But do you see this geometric pattern? Look at these dots. This might confuse some of you, so if you don't need this, don't worry about it. But this dot was on the 3rd fret. This one's where I went up 2 frets and 1 string thinner. So it's like it went over there. Then here, the index finger went down 2 strings thinner to get to this one. And then the ring finger moved just down 1 string thinner to get to that. So we got this kind of zigzag back, kind of went over. So it almost like creates like a Z, but I think it's, is it a Z or is it an S? You know what I'm saying? I think it's a backward Z. But if you look at that, you can move that around, right? So this is my starting point every time. So let me move the starting point here. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's the same pattern, but everything moved as a string thinner. And then when I went up to the 5 chord, I scooted up 2 frets. So everything's doing the same thing. It's just 1 string thinner. So this finger's here, that one's 1 string thinner, then it goes down, then it stays on the same note and does ring finger. Boom, 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 boom. Then every single note moved to 1 string thinner. Okay, and then when I moved it to the next starting point, every single note moved. So I'm using the same set of fingers to keep the pattern kind of geometric. Did that make any sense? Hopefully that helped a little bit. So first pattern, all of those notes move down a string. Okay, and then when we go to our 5 chord later on, our starting point moves up 2 frets and starts on the thinner string that we were already on for the 4 chord. So boom. So that's what's going on. We're literally moving this geometric pattern around. So when you're in a new key, you just have to find where to start the pattern, and you can play the same song without really knowing anything other than your starting pitch, right? If I know that my 1 chord's here, I move 1 string thinner to start the pattern for the 4 chord, and I move up 2 frets from the 4 chord to find the 5 chord. Well, then I can do that in any key. So if I started on a G, I'd be playing that 12-bar blues in the key of G. But if I start on an A note, 5th fret on the E string, now I'm playing a 12-bar blues in A. So hopefully that makes sense. Here's the 12-bar blues in A with that same pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 chord. 1 chord. 1 chord. This is the 4th one coming up. 1 chord. Now we're on the 4 chord. Still on the 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Stay on the 1 chord. 5 chord. Now the 4 chord. Now the 1 chord. Now the 5 chord. So if you look at each time I said something, my fingers were doing the same order. Index ring, index ring, index ring, index ring. So each time I started the pattern. So you watch the index finger to know where I'm starting, right? That's how you tell. The 1 chord, because I was starting here. The 1 chord, because I was starting there. 1 chord, 1 chord, then the 4 chord. I know I'm being really repetitive with this, but if you get this concept, then back to the 1 chord. Then back to the 1 chord. Okay, then up to the 5. Then back to the 4. Then to the 1. Then up to the 5 to end it. And then our pattern would start over. So now that we've got that idea, hopefully, I might have confused some of y'all, but hopefully the geometric pattern, literally like this, moving here and then moving up here. Hopefully that visualization, starting here, moving 1 string thinner, then moving up 2 frets from that 1 string, staying on that 1 string thinner. Okay, so now that we've got our pattern, we moved it around the 12 bars, and now we've done it in the key of G. Or I did the last one in the wrong spot, and we've done it in A. 4 chord, 1 chord, 5, 4, 1, 5. Okay, so now what's next? We could do a different pattern. So we could do, so we could still do this little box shape that I made that first pattern with, but kind of do that. I think that's sort of BB King-ish. So it's a different pattern, but I'm still going to do it 4 times there. I think that one's a little more complex, so I don't know if we want to get into that because it has some hammer-ons and some pull-offs, but you can see that that's the pattern. We would just move that around the whole 12 bar. Let's try a different pattern. Okay, so what I'm doing there is now my pattern is going to start with the middle finger because I wanted an extra note that wasn't inside that little box shape. So I'm just doing a major arpeggio. So if you don't know what that means, maybe go back to the beginner course instead of the blues course and try to look for the lesson on scales and arpeggios. Those will help you. So this shape, middle finger starts, then index, then pinky, and then I'm adding a note 1 string thinner with the index finger. So that's our pattern, okay? So starting point is our 1. Now we're moving 1 string thinner, 1 fret back. Now we're gonna go to our pinky note on the same string. Now we're gonna move 1 string thinner and play our index finger note, which happens to be on the 2nd fret on the D string. So use the grid where you're assigning your fingers to those particular frets for the pattern, not for the whole 12 bar blues, but just for the pattern. Then you can move that grid when it comes time. So middle, index, pinky, index, middle, index, pinky, index, and then I'm coming back to that note at the end. You don't have to do that though. You can just do those 4 notes. Let's keep it a little simpler for now. That'll make it easier. So I'm gonna do my 1 chord, so that's 4 times there. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing. Every finger is just going to go 1 string thinner right there. Now back to the first one 2 times. Now we're going to our 5 chord, so we got to go up 2 frets and 1 string thinner. Just 1 time there. Now we're going back to our 4 chord and back to our 1 chord and back to our 5 chord. So this time I'm going to play it without saying it, and you can follow along on the piece of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully that made sense. Hopefully you're starting to get, at the very least, that it's a pattern moving around to these different starting points, but your hand in each pattern is doing the same thing. It's just about where you're moving it to, right? So that's the idea there. So now that we've got that, the fingers go in the same order as you're doing each pattern. It's just your starting point is different. If it moved down a string thinner, then it still moves down a string thinner. If it didn't, then it doesn't. Okay, so maybe you're up to this point, and I'm hoping that I'll explain it a little clearer when I make the actual course version of this, but this is for the people that don't want to wait that long for that video to come out. So, so now we've got that. We've got our pattern. Okay, cool. We can move it around. I did it in A. That's right. Five chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord. Okay, so we can do all that. Cool. Maybe that makes sense. If it doesn't, we can watch it a few more times, see if it clicks a little bit. I explain it different ways in different videos, so it may just be, and sometimes you might hear it from a different teacher, a way that you understand better. So if you're looking up the 12-bar blues and this isn't making sense, try a few different people's videos and see if that clarifies things a little bit. And if not, let me know, and maybe I can word it in a way that makes more sense, because there are a lot of different learning styles and people kind of see things visually Sometimes it's easy for some people to see the geometry thing that I'm talking about. Other times people are like, how is it a shape that moves? I don't understand that part of it. So that's why it's important to kind of use the fingers that I'm suggesting here, is so that your understanding can be of this, doing the patterns within these grids where our fingers are kind of assigned to that grid while doing that particular pattern. And then we have to move it to different starting points. We're moving our whole grid to the 4 chord and to the 5 chord. Okay. If that's too confusing, don't worry about it. We'll keep working on it. So now the next step is, we did everything starting on an E string note. What if we start on an A string note and we try to do, like, let's go back to the pattern that was like boom, 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 boom. Okay, we're going to start on an A string note. Let's see what happens here. We're going to run into a problem. You'll see it. Time to go to the 4 chord, and one more time. Here we go, 4 chord. Uh-oh, I ran out of strings. So it's like you can't do your whole pattern there. So you could either change your pattern, which might be kind of lame. It might be hard to figure out something on the spot to do. So you might just go 1, 2, 3, what do I do? Okay, I'll go back to the first pattern. So how can we get around that? Well, let's do like the reverse of the shape that we were doing before. Remember how we went from here and we said our 4 chord is 1 string thinner? Okay. Well, if you know octaves, you probably know this already. You could take that note down the octave by going 2 strings thicker and 2 frets over. So think about it this way. If we play a scale, the scale starts on, in this case, a G, and it ends on a G. If you look at the distance between those 2 notes, you are moving 2 frets thinner and 2 frets higher and 2 strings thinner. So it's like, if you see this little box shape, you're going from one corner of the box, the low one, you're going 2 strings thinner and 2 strings higher to go up an octave. Same note, okay? So likewise, if we have a note up here, to move it down the octave, but it still be the same letter name, we go 2 strings thicker, subtract 2 frets. Okay, so that means when before our 1 chord was here, our 4 chord was here, and our 5 chord was here. But we could also play with our 1 chord still being in the same spot. We can go 1 string thicker and 2 frets back to find our 4 chord. And then our 5 chord is still 2 frets up from where our 4 chord was. So instead of going here and going 1 string thinner and then 2 frets up from there to find our 1 chord, our 4 chord, and our 5 chord, we're just taking these 2 notes down the octave. So it's still a G and an A. It's just we're playing a lower G and a lower A. So in that case, let's do this. So we're saying we're now in the key of D, and we want to be able to play our full pattern. So instead of moving up in pitch to get to our 4 chord, now we're going to move down in pitch, which means going to the E string to play, version of the notes to play on. So our 1 chord, now we're going to move backwards 2 frets and 1 string thicker for our 4 chord. Now we're going to go back to our 1 chord. Now we're going to go to our 5 chord, but we went down to it. Now we're going to go back to our 4 chord, and then back to our 1 chord, and then back to our 5 chord. So if it were me, I would highly suggest thinking of it as a different thing, right? So like before you're going 1, 4, 5, just think that you can also go 1, 4, 5. So, and just memorize those starting points like it's a totally different thing. And the reason you would do this is so that you can still play your full patterns within the 12 bar, even if you're starting on an A string note instead of starting on an E string note. There is another way to do it that requires a lot more knowledge of the notes, right? You could go, oh, okay, well, if I know every note on the bass, that's pretty easy. I could stay on the same string and just move up here. So like let's do this. Let's say our an example of that. We're in the key of D. Okay, now I want to move up to my 4 chord. What is my 4 note? D, E, F sharp, G. Oh, okay, it's a G. Well, I can find a G up here. So the 4 chord, here we go. Back to the 1 chord, to the 5 chord, to the 4 chord, to the 1 chord, to the 5 chord. But you're jumping all over the place when you do that. It's good to have the ability to do that, sure, but it's more useful to stay in the lower register of the bass and fill out the sound more, because we are the bass player. We get up here and all of a sudden we're really in the guitar player's range, which is fine sometimes. Like if they go super high with their solo and you're following them up there, then you're kind of still supporting them and moving with them. But if they're not doing that, then you're kind of in their range at that point. And if they're soloing, you might be conflicting with some of their notes. So we want to stay low. So D, E, F, G. Okay, G is our 4. Okay, well, we can move that G note down the octave. So if once again, if you have your notes memorized, you would know there's a G down here, and oh, I can just move my note there. But if you don't know that, just know that when we go from our 1 chord to our 4 chord, you have 2 options. You can do what we did originally, which was move 1 string thinner. Or from our starting point, you can move 1 string thicker minus 2 frets. So if we were on the 5th fret A string, we move 1 string thicker, and then we subtract 2 frets and end up on the 3rd fret. So I like doing the math first sometimes. Like if you're on the 5th fret and you're trying to find the 4 chord, you go, okay, 1 string thicker, 5 minus 2, because we're going 2 frets backwards. That's 3, 3rd fret. So that's kind of how I like to think of it. And if that's your 4 chord, your 5 chord is still just 2 frets up from there. So you could either think of your 1 chord, your 4 chord, and your 5 chord the original way, or this new way. 1 chord, backwards 2 frets, 1 string thicker. That's your 4 chord. And then our 5 chord is just 2 frets up from our 4 chord. Okay. I know I'm being very repetitive on that. I'm hoping you'll understand that. One version of the blues, 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord. Another version, 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord. If you're starting on the knee string note, you can't really go 1 string thicker without having a 5 string bass and do that way of finding the 4 chord. So you don't really have to worry about that way unless you're on a thinner string. So if your starting point is on the A string, or heaven forbid the D string, you have those options to stay low and stay out of the guitar player's way or the piano player's way. So that was digestible. Okay, I hope so. I hope it made sense to other people too. It's a hard concept to get if you're new to it. So I understand that it's like a little weird, but it's just geometry, right? So if you understand how octaves work, it helps a lot. But not everybody knows an octave that wants to learn the blues immediately. It's a good idea too, but anyway, so that's the idea. So 1 chord, go 1 string thinner for your 4 chord, or 1 string thicker, back 2 frets. So just use those formulas to kind of help you find the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Okay, so now I'm going to play it one more time in the key of D. So this is going to be the whole 12-bar blues. So I'm going to start my pattern here. When I get to the 4 chord, I'm going to do it this way, which was the back 2 frets, 1 string thicker thing we just talked about. And our 5 chord will be just 2 frets up from where the 4 chord was. Okay, here's the 12-bar blues using that method. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're on the 4 chord. Here we go. Now we're going to go back to the 1 chord. Stay on the 1 chord. 5 chord 1 time. 4 chord 1 time. Back to the 1 chord. And then we're going to end on the 5 chord. So we can also mix and match, right? You know how I said you can go, the 4 chord is 1 string thinner and the 5 chord is just 2 frets up from the 4 chord. Okay. You could also have another formula for finding the 5 chord the second way, and that's just same fret as your starting point, but 1 string thicker. So I highly recommend really mastering the first one of these things where I said, your starting point is on an E string note, move one string thinner for your 4 chord, and then plus 2 frets for your 5 chord from that note. So I would highly recommend learning it that way first and playing a bunch of blueses like that so that it's automatic before even trying to do this reverse way, because you might confuse yourself and start mixing and matching, and then you end up going to the 4 chord, and when you think you're going to the 5 chord, you might just end up going to the 4 chord an octave down, or that kind of thing. So just make sure you really understand where your root note is and the original way to find it first, and then add this other way later. So hopefully that helps. One thing that really helps, like I said, is memorize those notes. So especially the notes down here, you should know the note names hopefully up to the 5th fret on the whole bass. If you don't know anything past the 5th fret, there are ways to find those notes from what you know down here. But if you don't know these notes, at least know them on the E and the A string. And that's why in the beginner course I told you how to do that, because once you know those, you can use the octave idea to find the other notes. So like if you know that open E is an E note, the first fret's an F note, second fret's F sharp, then G sharp, and then the 5th fret is an A. That's the same A as the open A string. And then it's A, first fret A sharp, second fret B, 3rd fret C, 4th fret C sharp, 5th fret's D. If you just memorize those, 10 notes? It's 12 notes, wasn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Technically 12 notes, right? If you memorize those, then when someone says, hey, we're starting in the key of C, you go, oh, okay, C was the 3rd fret on the A string. Now you're like, oh, okay, I have to use that method that we talked about if our pattern uses multiple strings. If it uses more than 2 strings, so if we're going like that, we're using 3 strings for our pattern. Okay, well, in that case, I have to go down to my 4 chord, because if I go the first way to get to my 4 chord, I'll run out of strings. So hopefully that helps. One thing that would have helped, I think, is going back to the root note version of the bass line and playing the 12-bar blues with just root notes as the pattern. So this would look like our pattern is... Okay, so let's do this in the key of C. So once again, C is the 3rd fret on the A string. And we're going to play that 4 times for each time we see 1 on here. So each time you see that Roman numeral 1, we're going to play 4 Cs. Okay, so that means there's 16 Cs at the beginning of this before we move to our 4 chord. When we go to our 4 chord, we're going to use this new method where we go 1 string thicker and 2 frets subtracted. So we're going to say subtract 2 frets on that 1 string thicker. Okay, so here we go. We're starting on a C. C, that's a 1 chord, 1 chord, 1 chord, or 1 chord again. Now we're going down to our 4 chord, 1 string thicker and minus 2 frets. So we end up on the 1st fret. Do that 2 times, then back to the 1 chord. Now our 4 chord is just 2 frets up from where our 5 chord is just 2 frets up from where the 4 chord was. So if you remember the 4 chord was there, our 5 chord is here. If you don't remember that, our 5 chord is now 1 string thicker, the same fret as our starting point. Now our 4 chord, then our 1 chord, and then our 5 chord. So yeah, getting those down is really good so you know where to start your patterns. Okay, so now we can do a pattern there. Let's pick a new pattern. This is Killing Floor. Oh no, I think I want to go up to the 4 because it's only a 2-string pattern. Back. 5 chord. Oops, I'm mixing it up. Then our 4 chord. Our 1 chord. Then our 5 chord. So that was interesting. There's a reason why I didn't go down to the 4 chord, but I decided, why don't I still go down to the 5 chords? There's a 3rd version of the pattern if you wanted to. You could say my 1 chord is here. My 4 chord is the same fret, 1 string thinner. Or you could take that note down the octave like we did before. And then you could say our 5 chord is the same fret as the 1 chord, 1 string thicker. So we could have our starting points be an A string note. Our 4 chord would be right underneath that on the D string. And then our 5 chord would be the string thicker than our starting point. So that would be kind of like if our starting point's on the A string, our 4 chord would be the same fret on the D string, and our 5 chord could be the same fret on the E string. That's another way to find it. So I think if I give you guys too many options at once, it gets really confusing and you might kind of go back and forth between them. And that's why I think with the course, I'm going to start really simple and then give this like alternative way to play later on. And that's kind of how it was for me when I learned too. I waited until later to be able to do these going down to the note rather than up to the note, because I just had the habit of going up to the note. So really master that before you worry about finding the 4 chord somewhere else or finding the 5 chord somewhere else. I think it'll serve you better, even if you can do it, even if it's not confusing to you. Make sure you've got the first one down anyway. And then once you do, you can do that. Okay. So that's basically the idea. We're moving a pattern around. Our pattern can be simple or it can be a complex pattern. We can move it up 1 string thinner, we can move it down 1 string thicker to go to our 4 chord if we do the subtract 2 frets thing. We have a whole lot of different options on where we're starting each note, right? So let's talk about maybe one more step, and then we'll probably have to stop there because we're kind of running low on time. But now that we have that knowledge, we might have a 2-measure pattern. So have you ever heard this one right here? We're going to go back to the simple way of doing things because now we're going to do a 2-measure pattern. So instead of our pattern just being 1, 2, 3, 4, you might have heard one that goes more like this. Well, if we counted it, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, timing wise. So that's 2 measures. But these patterns in the 12-bar blues, if we're playing a 2-measure pattern over 12 bars, there are going to be certain places where we can't play the whole pattern, right? So we got to do a half pattern in those places, or a variation that works as a half pattern in those places. So let me show you what I mean. Here's our 1 chord pattern. But that's 2 measures. So first measure of the 1 chord, second measure of the 1 chord, third measure of the 1 chord, fourth measure of the 1 chord. Now we're on our 4 chord. First measure of the 1 chord, first half of the pattern. Second measure of the 4 chord. Now we're going back to our 1 chord. 1 measure of it, second measure of it, okay? Now we're going to our 5 chord, right? If you're following along on here. So in our 5 chord, we only have 1 measure. So we can only play half the pattern, and then we have to go to our 4 chord. So let's do that. Can't do the rest of the pattern. We're done there. We're going to our 4 chord. Now we're going back to our 1 chord, and we don't have enough time there either to play the whole pattern. And so then we can play the 5 chord, that pattern. So let's try that real quick. Second time. Sorry. The whole pattern, let me tell you what that pattern is so you can kind of play along with it if you want to. The pattern is 3rd fret E string. Then I'm using my middle finger for that one. Then I'm using my index finger to play 2nd fret A string. Then our pinky's getting 5th fret A string. So that's just an arpeggio. Then we're going 1 string thinner than that note, and we're doing our index finger note, so 2nd fret D string. And then the second half of our pattern is 3rd fret D string, back to 2nd fret D string, to 5th fret A string, to 2nd fret on the A string. So get your hand used to doing that. Middle, 1 string thinner, index, pinky, 1 string thinner, index, then the second half of our pattern, middle, index, all that was on the same string, then 1 string thicker, pinky, same string, index, and then 3rd fret on the E string will be middle finger on the starting note. Okay, so that's our pattern. We don't get to play it 4 times. We only get to play it 2 times because the first half of the pattern, sorry, I'm pointing from a spot. First half of the pattern, second half of the pattern, third part, or first part of the pattern, second part of the pattern. So that's kind of what's going on there. So that's how we play something that's longer than 1 measure over the 12 bar changes. So let me play it for you. 1 chord, still the 1 chord, still the 1 chord, still the 1 chord. To the 4 chord, everything moved down a fret. Still the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. Now we're going to the 5 chord, we can only do half the pattern. 4 chord, only half the pattern. 1 chord, and then the 5 chord. So I'm going to play the whole thing without saying it now. Just follow along on the page. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, then we're probably just moving too quickly. And when I come out with these videos on the course, it'll move a little bit slower. I'm kind of just picking things at random to talk about, and it'll be a little bit more organized once I get to that point. But we've got that. But then let's talk about variations. So we'll keep the chords the same, but maybe on the last one, I don't want to play the whole 1 chord pattern and the whole 5 chord pattern. So I'm going to walk from the 1 note into the 5 note. Well, first I'm going to play the 1 note. Then I'm going to think about where I'm going. I'm going to the 5 note. So I'm just going to go backwards 4 frets from there and end up on that note. So we've got our 1, and we're walking into the 5. That's a cool way to finish that pattern out. Or you could do the pattern on the 5 chord, but I think it works better to just hit the note, like the starting point of the 5 chord pattern. And I'm talking about, hopefully I can point at it, these last 2 measures, that 1 chord going to that 5 chord. So here's the variation on that particular set of 2 measures. So this would be middle finger hitting the G, then we're just walking up to the 5 from 4 frets back from the 5 chord. So that means from our pinky note, we're starting at our index note. And technically that last one's the 5 chord, so if you wanted to, you could move your starting position here and do whatever. But let me play it in context so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. 5 chord, 4 chord, and you see what I did there? I've taught this bass line before, but it includes a walk up like that. And basically, we haven't really talked about the walk ups, but they work very similarly to what I just did. Basically, when you're walking up, think about the chord you're trying to land on. So usually what you're doing in these measures is you're hitting the chord, you're hitting the root note of the chord that you're on, and then you're picking, so the starting point that you're on, let's say you're on the 1 chord, so you're playing the 1. Let's say you're walking into the 4 chord, okay. So 3, I'm walking into the 3rd fret here, so I gotta go 4 frets back from here. 3, 2, 1, 0. So that'll be walking up from there. Yep, we can use 0 as a fret, so open notes count as the 0 fret for this math that we're doing. Okay. So let's kind of jump back to the easier pattern that we started with today, a 1 measure pattern. And let's talk about what we're doing here. So we're going to do a walk up, and I know we're running into the 2nd hour of this, but it's fun talking about it. So let's talk about it. So we're going into the 4 chord from the 1 chord. So basically, we're getting 3 measures in. So we're starting at the beginning, and we're going 3 measures in, and then our walk up is going to happen on that 4th measure, leading into the 4 chord. So we have our pattern. We play it 3 times. And then it looks like we're going to start our 4th one. We still play that first note. But now we're going to start the walk up. So what I did there was I played 3rd fret on the E string, because that's the root note of that chord. That's the 1 chord. We're doing that measure right there. But now we know we're going to the 4 chord. So we're going to think about where we're going, and we're going to go, I'm saying 4 frets back, but it's really 3 frets back. 3 minus 3 is 0. Then 1st fret, then 2nd fret, then we're there. So all we did was not skipping any frets, walk there so that we end up on beat 1 of the 4 chord measure right there. We're playing the 4 chord note, the starting point note of that 4 chord. Blah. It's confusing to say, so I know y'all might be a little confused. Let me just demonstrate. 2nd pattern, the 3rd 1 chord. Here we go. Now we're on the 4 chord. Now we're back to the 1 chord. You do the same thing to get to the 5 chord. So yeah, you could do the same thing to get to the 5 chord there if you wanted to. So I'm hitting the 1 chord, and this would be going from the end of the 2nd line to the start of the bottom line. That 1 chord going to that 5 chord. I'm going. So once again, we subtract 3 frets to know where to start our walk up. 5 minus 3 is 2, so we're going to be starting on the 2nd fret and just filling in the notes without skipping a fret. So that would be, and we still hit our root note before we start the walk up. So we're on a 1 chord in 1 measure, and now we're going to the 5 chord. So we're going to play the root of the 1 chord. That's our starting point. So in this case, it's G. Now we're going to go 3 frets back from the 5 chord, which is the 5th fret on the A string. So we're going to the 2nd fret of the A string. Then we're walking into the 5th. Okay, and then from there, we can do our pattern, 5 chord, then our 4 chord, and then we can do the same walk up. Or you can do a really interesting thing that some people do that I like to do a lot. You can walk into the 5 chord and then walk back into the 1 chord, or do it down the octave. So if you know that walk up, you can do a bunch. And I think I've done a lesson on this. So if you look for like a blues walk ups lesson, it might be out there. I'm going to demonstrate this once and then leave you guys maybe a little confused. Hopefully you're understanding it a little bit better. But this is going to be with all the walk ups. I'll tell you when I'm doing them, but just follow along here so you know which walk up I'm doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here comes the walk up. 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Walk up. Walk up. Walk up. Boom, you're back to the start. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense. That part at the end was a little bit more advanced. I kind of feel like the course that I'm covering, I'll cover stuff like this, but I'll probably be covering different styles of the blues and giving you different patterns before we talk about this like craziness where we're walking all over the place and doing that. The other thing is the most common walk up that you hear while you're playing the 12-bar blues is the one that happens on the 4th measure. Sorry, the 3rd measure going to the 4th measure. So when you're going from the 1 chord to that 4 chord, that one's really common. And if you do the other ones, it might sound like you're trying to end the blues. So you got to be careful. The one that I told you going from, I believe it was this 1 chord to the next 5 chord. If you do that one there, it kind of cues the rest of the band to look over at you and they think, oh, are we ending the song? So it might be suggesting that an ending is coming up. So I'll do that, I'll play this again. And when I get to that one, I'll go, oh, is an ending coming up? And the ending will be, we'll stop on the 4, and then we'll go bum 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 bum, and that's a good way to end it. Yeah, so let's talk about it. Yeah, walk up to the 5. So on the 8th measure, if you start that walk up from the 1 chord to the 5 chord, you might be signaling to everybody, oh, we're about to end the song. And some common endings of the song, people will like stop on the 4. But that's another video for another course thing, common endings, right? So we'll do this. So the whole pattern, we'll pretend this is the last time around the changes. We've done the 12-bar pattern cycled over and over and over again. This is the last one. So the 1 chord, we're still going to do this walk up, but this is the one we're talking about. 4 chord, 4 chord. Okay, back to the 1 chord. Oh, we're going to cue everybody. So did you see how that happened? We walked up to the 5, and everybody's looking like, oh, something's about to happen. So we still play the 5 chord pattern, but a very common thing that happens there is the singer will get something by themselves. So you stop on the root note of the 4 chords. When you get to beat 1, I guess that's the 10th measure down there, this guy. When you get to that 4 chord, you hit it once, bump, and you leave a pause so they can say what they're saying. It's usually like the punchiest vocal part of the piece, right? Like an example is in Red House, Jimi Hendrix Red House. It's where he stops on the 4 and goes, you know, if she doesn't love me, I know, boom, I know her sister will, and then they do the ending after that. Slightly different ending, but same idea, right? So it's like that was the punchline of that joke in that case, or you know, that snarky comment, you know, kind of whatever, but just something where you're drawing a lot of attention to it, and then the song's over. So it's like, let me just do that last 12-bar pattern one more time. We'll do it. Okay, so I don't know what blues to sing. Walk up. I'm still trying to make up one here. We're going back to the 1 chord now. Here we go. We're gonna stop right here. Get ready, because that's the end. Okay. Wasn't quite in time because I was trying to come up with words, but hopefully you get the idea. Hopefully you kind of get the anatomy of a blues from that. I might have to retitle this video so that people know it's mostly about the blues. But hopefully that like clears up some things and gives you some new questions to ask. So let me know in the comments if I've answered some questions but raised some new ones. You can put the new ones in there. Thanks for hanging out with me on here, and you know, check out the new line that Kala has. I like this, the solid body bases with different pick guards, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.